The rope tow keeps trying to rip your mittens off your hands. You're 12 years old. Your boots are a size and a half too big, and the skis under your feet belong to a kid older than you who already outgrew them. Every time you try to turn, the skis skid sideways and dump you into the snow. You get back up, try again, fall again. Friday night lights are burning over the hill. Your dad is waiting somewhere in the parking lot, and you've been working the same 40 feet of frozen Vermont snow for almost an hour. Then, on one more try, something changes. You lean forward onto your shins instead of sitting back on your heels. The ski grips. One turn holds, then another, then a third. You still fall at the bottom. But for the first time, you know what a clean turn feels like. Level 1. The Rope Tow Kid. You're 12 years old in Richmond, Vermont, a town of a few thousand people along the Winooski River, close enough to Burlington to see the glow of it at night, but far enough that nobody there has heard of you. Winter here starts in November and doesn't let go until April, and by January the cold has a weight to it, the kind that turns the inside of your nose to ice on the walk from the parking lot to the rope tow shack. The hill is the one behind the old red clubhouse, a non-profit outfit that's been dragging local kids up a 350-foot slope on a rope tow since before your parents were born. The kind of place that promises no kid gets turned away for lack of money, and means it. The skis aren't yours. They belong to a neighbor's kid 2 years older, straight and skinny, and scratched down to the metal on both edges, which have never once seen a file. Your boots are a size and a half too big, packed out with 2 pairs of wool socks. And every time you fall, which is constantly, snow works its way down past your collar and melts against your spine before you can get back up. You don't know what a turn radius is. You know that pointing the skis and going fast is easy, and turning them without skidding sideways down the hill in a spray of ice is something else entirely. Something that seems to belong to older kids who've had this figured out since before you were born. Every Friday, the lights click on over the hill for what everybody just calls Friday night lights, and you stay out there long after your legs go rubbery, working the same 40 feet of packed snow below the clubhouse window. You keep skidding, weight back, skis sideways, spraying to a stop instead of carving through. 40 tries end in a slide. 50. Your dad stops asking why there's a new bruise blooming on your hip every week and just tells you to walk it off before dinner. You don't stop. You start leaning your weight forward onto your shins instead of sitting back on your heels, trusting the shape of the ski to do the turning instead of muscling it sideways. And on one Friday in February, cold enough that your eyelashes are frosting over, the ski stops skidding and simply grips. One turn holds clean, then a second, then a third, before you catch an edge in a rut and go down laughing into a snowbank you can't feel through your boots anymore. 3 turns. Lying there in the dark with the rope tow still clanking behind you, you understand something 40 falls couldn't teach you. The mountain isn't fighting you. Your weight is. That's where it starts, not with real gear, not with anybody watching. On a hill smaller than most backyards, on skis that already had one life before yours. Level 2, the after-school racer. You're 15, and you've saved every dollar from bagging groceries and shoveling driveways to buy your first real pair of skis. Use giant slalom boards off a shop's clearance rack, still stiffer and sharper than anything you've stood on. You join the after-school program 40 minutes up the road at Bolton Valley. 1,700 vertical feet of terrain lit up for night skiing on 12 different trails. One of the only mountains in Vermont that lets you keep training after the sun's already down behind the ridge. You teach yourself to tune your own edges on the kitchen table, dragging a file down the steel at an angle you read about in a forum post, ruining one edge completely before you get the base bevel close to right. The first time you run an actual set of gates under the lights, you straddle a pole on the 3rd turn and go down so hard your coach hears the pole snap from the lift line. You get up, you run it again. Your hands are raw from re-gripping a pole with a bent basket, and the tips of your fingers have gone numb enough that you can't tell if the sting when you flex them is from the cold or the fall. The gates stop feeling like obstacles somewhere around your 20th run of the winter. You start seeing the line between them instead, the shape the course wants you to carve, rather than the flags themselves. At your first real regional race, a giant slalom under the Bolton lights with maybe 60 kids entered, you finish ninth. Not a podium. But your coach pulls you aside afterward and says your second run was clean enough to actually watch, not just survive. And that's the first time anyone outside your own house has said something like that to you. You start showing up to the mountain before the bus even gets there, working the same drills, because you've felt what a clean run feels like now and you want it again. Level 3. The Beast of the East. You're 17, and you've finally saved enough working weekends at a hardware store in town to buy a used pair of downhill length race skis off a guy who raced in college. Skis built for speed you don't have yet, on a budget that's stretched as far as it'll go. Your team takes a trip south to Killington, the biggest vertical drop in New England at just over 3,000 feet. A mountain locals just call the Beast, for a reason that becomes obvious the first time you drop into Superstar, its signature race trail, and the pitch just keeps going and going past where you expected it to level off. Standing at the top, looking down a headwall that disappears over a roll before you can see where it lands, you understand for the first time that everything you learned at Bolton was only ever the introduction. The snow here isn't the soft Bolton stuff you learned on. It's Vermont ice, hammered flat and blue by grooming machines and wind, the kind of surface where a mistimed edge doesn't just slow you down, it throws you. You check your speed the first 3 runs down, feathering your edges out of fear, and your coach tells you over the radio that feathering on ice is how you lose control, not how you keep it. On your 4th run, you commit instead of check, wait forward, skis flat through the transition, letting the ski run instead of fighting it. And for the first time, you get all the way from the top of Superstar to the base lodge, without once scrubbing off speed out of nerves. You're breathing hard at the bottom, hands shaking on your poles, and one of the older racers on your team just nods at you the way people nod when they've decided you belong. Killington becomes the mountain you measure yourself against every season after that, the pitch that tells you the truth about where you actually stand. Level 4. The team captain. You're 19, running your own regional club team now because nobody else stepped up to do it, coordinating carpools and course times, and making sure the youngest kids on the roster don't freeze standing around waiting for their run. You're not the fastest skier in the group. There's a 14-year-old who's already beating your times, but you're the one who tunes everybody's skis the night before a race, because you're still the only one who actually knows how. Dragging a file down 8 pairs of edges by headlamp in somebody's garage until midnight, breathing on your fingers between pairs to keep them working. Running a team teaches you things solo training never could. How to tell a scared 12-year-old the line down a steep pitch without making the fear feel embarrassing. How to know when a kid needs to be pushed and when they need the run cut short before a bad crash turns into a worse one. You've been eyeing a real race package for 2 years. Skis, boots, and bindings built for actual competition, not hand-me-downs or clearance rack leftovers. And it costs more than anything you've ever purchased with your own money. You pick up every extra shift the hardware store will give you. 11 months later, you pay for the whole setup outright, no help from anyone. You click into the new boots in your driveway before you've even taken them to snow, just to feel what it's like to stand in something that was built for exactly what you're trying to become. Flexing forward against the cuffs in the dark until the neighbor's porch light clicks on to see what the noise is. Level 5. The tuning bench. You're 22, and you've moved to Stowe, Vermont for a real job, and the job that finds you is at a real ski shop with a service department. A hydraulic stone grinder, a wall of files and diamond stones organized by grit, and customers who expect their edges sharp enough to hold on boilerplate. Your first week, the shop's head technician watches you set a base bevel and just nods once, which you come to learn is the highest compliment he hands out to anybody. You learn things Bolton and the garage floor never could. Base bevels cut to a precise 1 degree, Side edges beveled 2 to 3 degrees depending on the discipline, wax temperatures matched to the exact snow forecast for race day, boot shells punched out with a heat gun and a press to relieve pressure on a bunion or a bone spur without wrecking the fit. Customers roll skis in wearing every possible symptom, and you start recognizing patterns the way a mechanic reads an engine. Chattering edges at speed almost always mean too much bevel angle. A ski that pulls hard to one side almost always means the boot's canting is off, not the ski itself, and a racer complaining their skis feel dead usually just needs the structure pattern reground to match the temperature of the snow they're actually racing on. You get faster than technicians who've been at the bench twice as long as you, because you learned the fundamentals wrong first, ruining your own edges on a kitchen table, and had to actually understand why each angle mattered, instead of just following a manual. The shop starts handing you the race team tuning jobs nobody else wants to touch under deadline. You're not just fixing equipment anymore. You're the person other racers trust with the machine that's supposed to keep them upright at 80 miles an hour. Level 6, the regional racer. You're 25. Climbing the national rankings and racing the NORAM circuit now. Chasing points at mountains across New England and out west, and you qualify for the U.S. Alpine Championships at Sugarloaf in Maine. Home to narrow gauge, one of the only true downhill homologated race trails left in the eastern United States. The course drops off a headwall so steep that walking it before your first training run, you catch an edge on your own boots and nearly go down standing still. Your first run, you're tentative through the flats below the spillway crosscut and lose more time there than you gained on the steep part above it, watching the timing board post a number that puts you deep in the field before you've even finished processing how fast the headwall actually was. Your coach tells you the trail doesn't reward caution. It punishes it by taking away the one thing that would have made the flat section fast in the first place. Speed you already had and gave back out of nerves. Race day adds ice nobody trained on, a crust that formed overnight and never fully softened, and you go down in your seating run on a turn you'd carved clean a dozen times in training. Low speed, more embarrassing than painful. Mud and snow packed into your goggles while your teammates ski past the fence to check you're still moving before they keep going themselves. You keep racing anyway, chasing points at Sugarbush and Waterville Valley between the bigger stops, learning a different mountain's particular ice every few weekends. Over 3 seasons your finishes climb. Mid-pack, then top 20, then, at your final Sugarloaf start, 9th in the field out of more than 140 athletes from around the country. 9th doesn't sound like much from outside it. It's the difference between a hobby you're good at and something you're actually becoming. Level 7, the course builder. You're 30, and you've taken a job at a training academy near Burke Mountain. 2,000 vertical feet of terrain that's produced Olympians for decades. And your days now involve a course-setting kit and a snow saw as much as your own skis. You learn to build a race course the way you learned everything else, badly at first. A turn set too tight that sends a 12-year-old sliding out into the fencing. A start wand planted on a blind roll that nobody can see until they're already committed to the turn below it. You fix it the next morning, moving the gate, flagging the roll, and within a season you're the one other coaches ask to set the technical sections, because you actually walk every pitch before you trust it, kicking at the snow with your boot to feel for the ice underneath before you ever plant a wand in it. A small ski manufacturer up in New England starts sending you prototype race skis to test, feedback that actually gets read by the people building the next model, instead of filed away unread. You're not chasing your own race results as hard anymore. You found something else. The satisfaction of setting a course that didn't exist an hour ago and watching a kid who was scared of the pitch last week ski it clean this week. Feeling that landings settle into your own chest the way your own runs used to. Somewhere in this stretch, you realize the sport gave you 2 different kinds of pride. One from your own results, one from watching someone else earn theirs. And you never expected the second one to matter as much as it does. Level 8, The World Cup start gate. You're 36, standing in the start gate on Birds of Prey at Beaver Creek, Colorado, 11,400 feet above sea level, staring down a course that drops nearly 2,500 vertical feet through terrain. A course designer carved specifically to punish hesitation. Your skis carry a telemetry sensor now, feeding data back to a small team that didn't exist in your life 5 years ago. A coach, a service technician, a physio who taped your knee this morning. Because the cartilage in there has logged 2 decades of impact and finally started complaining out loud. You watched split times the night before, comparing your line through the talon, turn against the top 5 skiers in the field, and saw exactly where you're bleeding time to a racer, taking a tighter inside line through the brink that you've always been too cautious to commit to yourself. The race is broadcast live back to a country full of ski towns just like the one you grew up in. And somewhere down in Vermont, people you've never met are watching a screen just to see your bib number flash past. Race day. Temperatures hover in the 20s, and the crews have injected the course with water overnight until the surface feels less like snow and more like a sheet of glass tilted at an angle that shouldn't be skiable at all. You commit to it anyway. Out of the gate, you tuck into the flats and let the ski run. And by the time you're through the brink and into talon, the crowd noise disappears completely, replaced by nothing but wind and the scrape of your own edges. You crest the Golden Eagle jump at full speed and go weightless for 60 meters of Colorado air, nearly the length of a football field, landing it clean and driving straight back into a tuck without losing your line. Your hands go numb from the vibration by the halfway mark. Your quads lock solid through the final pitch, and you cross the line under the red tail finish, having shaved 0.4 of a second off your best training run of the week. You don't win. You finish 16th, your best World Cup result ever, in a field stacked with the fastest downhill skiers alive on the planet. You sit down in the snow past the finish corral, helmet off, chest heaving, and for just a second, you think about a 350-foot hill behind a clubhouse and a rope tow that used to try and pull the mittens off your hands. The distance between that hill and this mountain isn't something you can explain to anybody who wasn't there for both ends of it. Level 9, the one who stays. You're 47 now, back in Vermont, and your body carries the paperwork of 3.5 decades in this sport. A knee that clicks on cold mornings before it loosens up. A wrist that still aches before a storm, from a training crash that never quite healed right. Knuckles that don't fully straighten after enough seasons of gripping poles through the impact of landing jumps you probably shouldn't have hit. You've traded racing for building and teaching, spending most of your winter weekends now volunteering with the local junior program, setting courses for kids who don't yet know what a clean line even feels like, driving up from your house before sunrise so the course is ready before the first bus of the day even pulls in. You still ski every course you set before you let a single kid near it, because you learned a long time ago that a builder who won't test his own work isn't a builder anybody should trust with theirs. A handful of new kids showed up to the after-school program this season, unsure what to do with a pair of skis that don't quite fit yet, standing at the bottom of the rope tow hill with their weights sitting back on their heels the way yours used to. One Friday evening, checking the course for the next day's race, you pass the same 40 feet of packed snow below the clubhouse window where you learned to stop skidding. There's a kid there, maybe 12, on skis a little too long, skidding sideways down the hill again and again, spraying snow with every turn and never once holding an edge. You stop. You watch 2 more tries. Then you walk over and tell them to lean their weight forward onto their shins instead of sitting back, to trust the ski to do the turning instead of forcing it sideways. They try it. The ski skids, catches, skids again, but for one turn, just before it lets go, it holds. They look at you like you just handed them something enormous, something they didn't know they were allowed to want, and they immediately push off to try it again without even waiting for you to say anything else. And in a way, you did. Because 35 years ago, somebody could have stopped on this exact same hill and told you the exact same thing. And instead you had to find it alone in the dark, with nobody watching and nobody to tell about it after. You're not going to let that be true for this kid, not if you can help it. Somewhere right now, in 100 small towns nobody outside the county line has ever heard of, a kid is skidding down a rope-tow hill in skis 2 sizes too big, chasing one turn that actually holds before the lights click off for the night. Most of them will quit trying eventually, and nobody will blame them for it. A few of them won't quit, and every single time, it comes down to one turn on a hill nobody else was watching.